device. Barnes, can you hear us now?
Oh my gosh, we said all those cool things and everybody missed it.
Well, here, let's do a quick rotate through.
Okay, rotate through. We gotta do it really fast. Like,
so
hi, I'm Travis Tulsi.
Yeti's got no. As long as the cameras were running, it looks like the audio was okay. I don't know.
So
I don't know.
How long
Maybe
was
it
not
just
going.
I don't know. It may not have been going the whole time. It may all three of those channels may be connected.
Okay, so if we didn't have it going, so recap, salary survey.
Take the salary survey.
Co-creative IO. It's awesome. Blah, blah, blah. And you are looking at the data model for this thing that we've been building.
Now we have Echo.
What do you mean we have Echo?
I don't know. Barnes is saying we have Echo. This is really weird.
Barnes, you're really cramping our style with this quality control.
Oh, Echo was him. That's awesome.
Gotta love it when your QA guy sucks.
We are all having technical difficulties tonight.
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, but anyway, so you are going to be you are sharing with us this data model for the app that we've been building because you looked at it again and you were looking at you made some changes.
Yes.
Wait, first, why did you make the changes?
Okay. So that's kind of what we were getting into here. Was last time I had a data model, but in between last time and this time, I went back and made a bunch of changes. So the Node.js app is based off of basically the mid server. It's very similar to mid server. And so I went back and did some more reading on how the mid server operates, why the mid server operates, and basically for performance reasons, it dumps all of its messages into the ECCQ table. And then the sensors pick it up from there. And basically, whenever you call a REST API, it is using the API worker threads. But when you run a scheduled job, that is a different set of worker threads. And so basically, ServiceNow has only so many, what's the word I'm looking for? Semaphores. Basically worker threads.
And you make fun of me for my vocabulary, and you know what the heck a semaphore is?
No, I don't know what a semaphore... The best I understand a semaphore to be is it's basically a padlock on a specific resource in ServiceNow. So only one person can get access to it at a time. Only one person can go through the door, and then they put a padlock on it. You know, they lock the door behind them. So
are we picking the lock or just not going in the house at all?
Well, no, that we can't get around that. There's only so many workers in the ServiceNow instance. There's only so many.
That limits what we're able to do.
It limits what the instance can do. And if you don't use those workers properly, bad things happen. You start having performance issues.
The whole minions thing is so applicable when you say that.
It is.
Banana!
So, for those catching up, we are using a Despicable Me theme in this application, and our Node.js workers are all called minions.
Yes.
And I plan on naming them.
By the way, our next app is going to be themed after the Emperor's New Groove. We're going to figure that one out, just as a side note.
Noted.
But anyway, so minions are our workers.
So minions are the workers, and we're going to have a series of REST endpoints that I've already kind of scaffolded out. I have to implement these. But basically, first the minion has to connect to the ServiceNow instance.
Yes.
Then it has to periodically let it know that it's still alive. Hey, I'm still here. I can still do work. I do want the ability to disconnect. So like if it crashes and has an error or something like that, maybe it can send out one last lifeline. Or if I shut it down, I can trigger the disconnect manually. Then I have to pull for jobs. So as ServiceNow is inserting jobs into the job execution table, the minion is polling, asking that table, hey, do you have work for me?
So
hey, do you have work for me?
Basically, the ServiceNow and the jobs board is kind of like Gru putting together this huge, like, jobs board like the like in Final Fantasy. Oh, you're gonna love this. In Final Fantasy 12, how you went on hunts and you'd have to get the hunts from the board, the bounty board.
Yes.
Why are you sighing at me? That's perfectly legit.
Our references are just so different.
Well, okay. That's all I got. That's all I got is a bounty system in Final Fantasy, okay? But yeah, like Gru is putting the jobs on like the job openings board, job openings site. And the minions are like, oh, me, and they're looking and they're looking for ones they can grab.
Yes, and each time they poll, it's like they're jumping up to see the job board.
Yes, because they're short.
Because they're short.
Except for that one. There's that one tall one.
So the minion is going to grab a job or a collection of jobs. It's going to do work to execute the jobs, collect data from other ServiceNow instances, collect data from the CDC, collect whatever data I'm sending it to do. And then it's going to add its responses to the job response table. Now, this is one difference between my approach and ServiceNow's mid-server, is I'm actually splitting my job execution, the stuff the mid-server needs to do, from the job response, which is what the minion is passing back. I'm actually splitting those two tables out just because I like the separation between the two. They have two different purposes.
Because you got to keep them separated.
Yeah. Got to keep them separated.
I miss doing this. We have so much fun. Or I have fun because I think I'm funny.
You are funny. So the minion is going to put the job response back into the table.
This is like what they go and retrieve.
Yeah, so when the minion retrieves the data set from the CDC to update my data in the ServiceNow instance, it's going to go out, it's going to get the data, it's going to dump the data into this job response table, and then I will have a system of scheduled jobs basically that I'm going to use the scheduled job. Hey, how's it going, Kevin?
See? Gotta keep them separated.
So,
my people get me.
So we're gonna use the scheduled job worker threads to actually process the job response table. This is by managing how many of those workers we're using, we can prevent this system from
bottlenecking?
Pretty much. So like your scheduled job system handles ServiceNow's events, the event model. Anytime you I want to use the term dispatch, but ServiceNow uses a different term. But anytime you add an event to the event queue in ServiceNow, it's the scheduled job threads that are actually processing it. So like if I go into scheduled jobs, today's scheduled jobs, and I look at the ones that are running.
Such a glorious piece of functionality.
This event queue monitor. You can see text events. Event process 0. I think it's this one. I think it's event process 0 is actually the one that processes the event queue. And you can see it runs every 10 seconds. Fire. Andrew says fire is the term in ServiceNow. Anytime you fire an event.
Well, what makes him an authority on what ServiceNow says? It's a joke. It's a joke.
I think he's a pretty good authority on ServiceNow.
It's a joke. This is where Andrew totally rolls his eyes at me. Hopefully not a dumpster type of fire, Kevin says. We all got jokes tonight.
That depends on how many events you're firing.
Oh, that's very true.
Then it might be a dumpster fire. But yeah, so the event schedule, the event processing, the metric processing, performance analytics processing, you can see report view, flow engine. All of these different applications in ServiceNow and in fact the mid server as well, I believe, has some stuff on this queue as well.
I'm feeling a shirt idea coming on about how it's all a process.
Well, it is all a process. And a lot of it runs through the scheduled job workers. So you want to run some scheduled jobs for parallel processing, but you don't want to run too many jobs to the point that you back up the event queue and some of these other processes. So this is where I kind of realized that if I didn't architect this right, I was going to end up either consuming too many workers on the scheduled job thread, the scheduled job workers, or I was going to tie up my my REST API threads. Either way,
you can't. Yeah, you got to watch that traffic, or else you're going to have everything slow down to it.
Right.
Like I saw that using what was I doing? Okay, I had this project where I basically built a application where you could filter through the results of this huge table, like over 1 million records, and they had I built filtering capabilities and stuff like that. But the filtering had to be based on this text field, and so basically it would calculate that field's value over these 1 million records, and then group together the value of the field, and those would be your options under this filter. It was a nightmare, because there were 8,000 choices even after it was but every time the widget calculated that, it was slowing it down so much it was unusable. So what we did was we dumped that off, which was your suggestion, but I'll take it. We dumped it off into a scheduled job because we didn't want to do it under a business rule where every time that table updates, because then that'd be ridiculous, right? So we did a scheduled job. So every so often, it would recalculate those filter options, and the widget just had to pull the little cache for it, which cut the load time in half. It was wonderful. So
that's awesome.
Yes, I've definitely enjoyed seeing the value of scheduling those things periodically instead of having to dynamically pull them or whatever, because it does a lot to save time and effort on your system and stuff like that. But you still have to manage those things, because usually the things you're doing in scheduled jobs are these huge, big, calculated, pain in the butt things that you just don't want to handle any other way.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a lot of but
Well, and performance is one of those things that, you don't want to spend too much time optimizing up front, but also you don't want to make catastrophic mistakes that, destroy the entire application on day one, which I've had happen a couple times. Usually my fault.
I don't care about performance. Cover it in CSS and get back to me. Andrew says, which is why you want to do your own event queue handler for something like this.
Right. Yes, exactly. And that's why we're kind of working on this, is to handle this processing separate. The goal of this is to offload a lot of the work to the minions, because then all ServiceNow has to do, all ServiceNow has to do is say, I want work to be done. And then the minion can say, ooh, I'll take care of that for you. And I can have an entire army of minions spread across a bunch of different servers and get way more worker threads than ServiceNow would have available. And for stuff like downloading the CDC data, that could potentially be very useful.
You're all about that CDC data.
I mean, it's millions of rows worth of data, and I can actually do the data processing on the minion and then just post the analyzed results back to ServiceNow. And the same applies to a lot of the data crunching that I want to be able to do. A lot of it is stuff that I can do off ServiceNow and post the data back to ServiceNow, and now ServiceNow doesn't have to run all those calculations. Honestly, I haven't looked much into performance analytics, but I wouldn't be surprised if ServiceNow, especially on larger implementations, it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't have separate, background workers handling some of that stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of what we're working on here. This is what I have kind of solidified to on the data model. You've got the target, which was last time named Minion, but we decided Minion made more sense for
the thing going and doing the work.
The NodeJS server.
We have put a lot of time and effort into the nomenclature we're going to be using here.
We have put way too much into the metaphor.
Just wait till I start the UI.
And I like how we both had like, hold on, we got to do the evil laugh. Naming things is hard, Andrew. It's like the hardest thing in programming.
It really is. Like I've said many times before, it takes everything in me when I'm coding not to like, nobody's going to see this variable. I can totally name it Elrond or, Zelda or God knows any other little
Yeah.
thing. But anyway, I digress. So target was minion, but target is better.
So target is basically the REST endpoints, whatever the target environment is that we're trying to hit. Credential is how we're going to access that endpoint. Job execution is basically our jobs queue. Job response is the response that we're posting back from the minion, the results of the work that we did.
So job execution is like the job board.
Yep, that's the job board. That's the jobs we need the minions to do. Okay. The job response is the result from the minions. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to have those sensor scripts, the scheduled job that is going to process those job responses into our resulting data models. So we have also renamed the application to the GRU job runner.
Which I understand and I fully support, but it's way more fun to say lipstick taser.
Yeah, it is kind of more fun to say lipstick taser. Yeah, we'll make sure we get a lipstick taser in there somewhere.
Yeah. I like Easter egg.
But GRU is managing things here.
Yeah, at least he thinks anyway. I think it's really Margot, but I digress.
All right, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to pull up Studio. I'm going to pull this up in Studio.
That's the old way of doing it.
Yeah, I haven't really gotten too far into App Engine Studio yet in Paris, so I don't...
We need a vacation to sit and catch up on this stuff, I swear.
All right, so I have already set up a bunch of stuff. I've got my access controls and such that I set up last time.
You probably did this while I was playing No Man's Sky the other night.
All right, so... No, this was done a couple weeks ago.
Oh, okay, because I don't remember you doing this.
So the first thing I want to tackle is this connect. You can never catch up. Yeah, ServiceNow has way too many teams working on way too many things. It's impossible to catch up anymore.
Yeah, that's why I niched down, and I'm trying to focus on being really good at my one thing, and I am totally okay with that.
All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tackle the connect REST endpoint. So I have this scripted REST resource. You'll see I've created a scripted REST API, which has connect, disconnect, add response, get work, and heartbeat. This is one difference between mine and the ECC queue is the ECC queue uses the ECC queue for the heartbeats, whereas I think I'm not going to. I think I'm going to keep the heartbeat separate. We'll see how that works.
Question, is heartbeats, is that a concept and a name that you see
Yes.
elsewhere?
Yes. Most servers have some sort of keep alive message or heartbeat message where when they're talking to each other, they like to tell each other, hey, I'm still here. Hey, you know how when you see security guards in movies, they got those check-ins where they call into the command center and say, all clear?
Mm-hmm. Or like when you're on an application, it's like, hey, are you still like on Netflix?
Are you still watching? Yes.
Could you zoom in a little bit?
Yeah. A heartbeat is basically the are you still watching
of REST API.
Of REST API of server communication.
Oh, all right.
So we've got add response, connect, disconnect, get work, and heartbeat on this Minion API scripted REST resource. I do have default ACL set. Any application, especially if you plan on publishing to the store, has to have ACL set on all REST endpoints. So
it's secure?
So it is secure.
So sketchy people can't just pop in there and be like, yo.
Right. All right. So let me see here.
My technical jargon just baffles you, doesn't it?
A little bit. All right, so let's see. On my minion table, because I'm connecting, I do have a status field, which is a choice field. And so basically all I want to do is when I jump in, when I connect, I want to come in here, and for starters, let's just kind of update and do this. var gr, here, let's zoom in, is equal to new glide record, the minion table.
People frowned on using var gr, which I think is dumb, for the record. You've just got to like encapsulate and keep things straight.
As long as you keep it in well-defined functions, and it's not the worst thing in the world. Most people know what you mean when you say gr, and they know how to figure out which table you're creating the glide record on. Mm-hmm. Are there things that you could do to improve it? Sure, like I could call it minion gr if I wanted to. Mm-hmm. But realistically, especially if you're taking a more functional programming style, there are things you can do with functional programming where you can actually shove the glide record so far down the chain that you're not even actually dealing with glide record most of the time anyway. Mm-hmm.
It's okay, you just gotta know what you're doing.
Right. You don't want to have GR, GR2, GR3,
No, that's hard to keep track of.
Right.
But if you're putting your GR in separate functions the way both of us tend to, then they can't, the paths won't, the streams won't cross.
The streams won't cross.
But anyway, please continue. You're doing your glide record.
So let's see.
Queries.
In fact, speaking of good functions,
I swear I get you off track so much. It's glorious.
Function activate minion. So we're going to run this function here. And basically what I don't like how this is like jittering back and forth. That's kind of annoying.
Can you unjitter it?
Probably, but probably not easily at the moment.
Just put your finger on it so it won't move.
Here, I'll zoom out for now while I'm typing.
And then you can zoom in and show.
And then zoom in and show. So gr.get, and I will need a parameter for that get, and that's going to be the minion ID, or minion name, because I'm using name as the unique ID for this one. Because you can't call it minion if you're not naming it like Dave and...
But you haven't, like, defined that anywhere.
Correct. I'm going to add it to my function signature.
You have to do it to make the text blue or drive me insane.
Well, there you go.
Thank you.
All right. So basically, if gr.get minion name, which minion name I'm handing in through the function signature. Okay, so if I am able to get it, then what we're going to do is I believe it's status field is equal to online. I'm going to change that to active. Else, what are we going to do if not?
If they're not active?
If I can't get it, then here's what we need to do. gr.update. gr.initialize. If not, I need to create a new one. gr.name is equal to minion name. gr.status is equal to active. I'm going to gr.update. Okay. I think that will do.
So if the status is, so if it's active.
Basically, if a minion record already exists, then I am going to set its status to active because this is the connection.
Yep.
This is the connection call.
And if there isn't one, you create
a new one
and then set it to active.
Right.
Do you get to name it?
We will. And I think that's all I really need. So then I have to call this function. And some folks may be wondering why I wrap this in a function in the first place. And A is because it gives GR a nice context. Mm-hmm. I'm activating a minion, and that's the minion table. So, you know, I can kind of cheat a little bit and get away with using GR, and it honestly doesn't matter that much. Because if you can't figure out what I'm doing in this function, given, you know, the table name and the name and what I'm doing,
there's other things that need to be resolved there.
I don't think that naming my variable minion is going to be the deal breaker here.
That's pretty true.
Second, it also enables me to move this to a script include very easily later if I need to. Notice that this function is entirely independent. It is not dependent on any variables outside of this function. So that makes it easy for me to move that function.
It's beautiful.
Activate minion, minoni, mignon, can't type. Okay, and then request dot minion name. We'll start with that and see how that goes. And I'm going to update. Let's see. I'll pay $250 to get you to make the script box full screen and larger font.
Is that better? Oh, that's so much better.
Better?
Look at there.
I don't know what this is going to do to the rest of the stuff I'm doing, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, I mean, you can like zoom out when you need to.
Script include plus. Also move the common elements out of your branching a la status equal to active and gr.update. Yes. So what Andrew was saying there is that I can improve this by saying active status is equal to active and boom. And if I were doing this in a pure functional style, I could actually do something really fancy. I don't know that I really want to do that right now, though.
I mean, your website's co-created.
Yeah, Andrew says nah.
Could be fancy.
I could be fancy, but I'm not going to. I think this is good enough. This will get the job done. Where'd my update go?
There is something to be said about perfect being the enemy of good, even in code, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Back to that whole thing with performance, you know, there's only, you know, good enough's good enough.
Mm-hmm. Lines 8, 9, and 14, 15 are the same. Yeah, we can actually peel that out. Now, yep. Correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, but gr.update is that technically an upsert, isn't it?
You have to wait like 6 seconds for him to see it.
Should be moved outside the if-else, and if I move that outside the if-else, then technically what I want to do is switch this to a not, move my else statement into, so basically by throwing the not there, I'm inverting, and I'm saying that I'm going to move my else statement to inside the if, get rid of the else, and now we've got the same behavior, but a lot fewer lines of code, and all of the duplicate stuff has been removed.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Andrew.
Less
That's
branches,
nice.
more awesome, he
Absolutely. Said. Absolutely.
Look at this. We are doing the thing as a family.
All right. So, now, if I jump over to here, there's my little share post. I've got my minion over here. And I've got a... So the minion has changed a little bit as well. I've got some basic configuration here where I am pulling in values. Let's see, required config values, get name. So basically I am pulling from the process environment for most of this configuration. So I don't actually have to change this file here. I'll actually change my .env, which I'm going to pull off screen real quick because I think... Yeah, your that's what I thought. Yeah, my password's in the .env. So
you don't want to share that with the family?
I don't.
Or share with the class rather?
I don't. So basically a .env file, all it is a series of environment variables. So for example, URL is equal to, and then I would provide this URL. And I need to zoom in again. Can I just... And we need to make this bigger. So an environment, here, let's go full screen with it. There we go. So with the environment, the .env file, you're basically taking a bunch of environment variables, which are, I mean, I hate to use the words in the definition, but it's a bunch of variables that you can set on a per server or per environment basis. Mm-hmm. Each operating system has its own environment variables. When I dragged VS Code off screen. Sorry, I don't have the soundboard.
Do they show the comments with these videos when you watch them later?
They do.
Oh, that's good.
But yeah, so I can turn around and I can set my URL, I can set my username, I can set my password, and it's just a bunch of this variable is equal to this value. And that is all my .env file is. In fact, let me do this real quick. I'll pull it off. I will make a copy of it without all the sensitive details.
I mean, come on, Trav. It's not like your password's hard to guess. It's like, I heart my wife.
Really? Why you gonna dime me out like that?
Because we'd all figure out eventually. Man, I'm really feeling the whole soundboard.
So
can't put special characters.
So this is what this is essentially what my real env file looks like. It's got the URL, it's got the username, it's got the password, and all of this is being used inside of the configuration. So then I've got my app.js, which you'll see I have this start worker function that accepts a polling interval. And basically I'm using a set timeout to periodically run this start worker. So, periodically run, periodically run the start worker function, which I guess technically we're going to end up having to rename and move some of this stuff around. Because that is not actually how we want it to work. But what it's going to do is it has to connect. Let's see. So I've got start worker, and I'm going to need a separate function for running it. Yeah.
You could call it like minion treadmill.
So I'm actually going to call this one pull for jobs, and pull for jobs. Okay, that's a little better. Because my start worker function needs to look a little different. All right, so start worker, and I'm using async function here, which is not something you ever really deal with in ServiceNow.
I'm about to say, I've never seen that. Not even in like other people's janky code.
So most of what you do in ServiceNow, especially server side, tends to be synchronous code. That is, when you execute it, it waits for the code to finish before doing anything else. Node.js is highly asynchronous. Like, it's by design, everything works off of an event queue asynchronously. So when you ask it to read a file on your hard drive, it creates a job in a job queue, and some worker goes and gets the file and then posts it back to the job queue, basically the same way as what I'm doing in ServiceNow. And then the Node.js code picks up that job from the queue and reads the results, loosely speaking. So there's a lot of asynchronous behavior in Node.js that you don't deal with in ServiceNow, which means you usually end up doing something kind of like this. Do a thing, dot then do this function, dot then do this function. And Sarah, you're probably quite familiar with this from the service portal side of things.
Doesn't mean I like it.
Usually you'll do something like c.server.get.
Yeah, and then you'll refresh.
And then you'll do a then.
Yeah.
Right. This is asynchronous code. Okay? You're doing a thing, then you're waiting. When you get a response, you do this thing and wait.
Usually,
and when you get
what you're doing is based on whatever comes back from the server.
Right.
At least in my case.
Async lets you do things a little bit differently. Instead of using then, you can use this await keyword.
Oh,
so basically, instead, what I would do is I would say, I'll just do it on the next line. So instead of this, I would have an async function that I would say await c.server.get. Then I would say this is really bad code, but response is equal to await and I'll give these names real quick just so we can.
So basically await is that dot then. It's just another way to do that.
It's another way of doing dot then. But see, so this allows you to write asynchronous code in a synchronous way.
That's cool.
That's all the async is. It just makes it easier to play around with async code because otherwise you end up with really deep nesting or callback hell. Yeah. Before then was a thing, you had to use callbacks, which is where you pass a function to a function.
That does not sound pleasant. That sounds like really nested, weird glide record weirdness.
Yes.
I know I used weird twice in that sentence, but you know.
Basically, what it would look like is c.server.get function 2, function 3. It would look something along.
I need you to delete that. It's giving
yeah,
me a headache.
it would look. Actually, I don't think it would. I think it would actually look like that. It's weird.
Either.
It's
it would be C.
Or yeah, c.server. But yeah, it would look something like that. Messy, garbage, awful.
Anywho. So you're doing this async method thing, and we're starting up the worker.
We're trying to start up the worker and make that initial connection. So I am going to copy this code that I had already kind of written before.
Cheater.
And so what's going to happen here? What's going to happen?
That's what our 2-year-old does. He gets
What's going to happen?
Squats down and he puts his hands on his knees and he's looking at something. We have no idea where he gets this from. He puts his hands on his knees and he goes, "What's going to happen?" We have no idea where he gets it.
All right, so I'm doing a post. So I need to change this to post. So I'm using the Axios library like we've done previously, which is just, this is the library that is actually making your REST calls to ServiceNow. I am doing a post to, no longer hitting job execution. I'm now using Minion Connect. So I need this URL. And I'm going to replace this. And we need to pass the username and password from my config, which again is coming from my .environment file, my .env. And then Axios. Where's the post? How do I do a post? I'm going to find a little example here. Axios.get, Axios.post. That doesn't look right.
Was gone for 2 minutes.
Performing a post. Post user. But what about... here we go. This is what I'm looking for. Axios. Method post URL data. Data object is the one I want. So method URL authentication mechanism data. And minion name I'm going to get from my config as well. So with that, what I need to do is update my environment, which is basically going to be coming in here and saying, I'm actually going to change how that worked, is equal to, and then I'll give it a name like Bob. So config name, let's see. So down here I've got my get config, and you can see URL, username, password, minion name, process.env.minion name. And if you're wondering why I have this separate get config, the separate get config function and all of this extra scaffolding, the main reason is because eventually I want to move it out of the .env file. .env is not a good place to store your username and password because it's plain text in the system. So I want to be able to offer multiple different ways of running this. And for that reason, my config does not need to be just like a flat file, a flat text file. I need there to be some logic in it. So I went ahead and I put that capability in right from jump. So now minion name, the minion name config is coming from that environment file minion underscore name, which means which is coming from this guy. Now I just need to put that in my real file. And while y'all can all look at my desktop. And save and close the .env, bring it back. I feel like the objects retrieved from the server are going to be bananas.
Thank you.
This is glorious.
Don't name him Bob. Name him Kevin.
Kevin? Fine. Kevin can be the first one.
Kevin is like well, I think Bob is too, but like we have a Kevin present and we can honor him by making him our first minion. Okay,
Kevin. But I have to do it in the real one too.
Well, then do it in the real one too. That's a you problem.
Jeez.
Look, I would like to remind you that you invited me to come in here and be a smart mouth with you, okay?
I did invite you.
Own fault.
All right, so once I have successfully started the worker, first of all, I'm going to do a console.log to log that data back. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to start pulling for the jobs. So we'll take this guy. And I'm going to do pull for jobs. All right, so this should connect to the ServiceNow instance. Right. Let ServiceNow know that it has connected. If it was successful, it should start polling for the jobs. Now, I don't remember exactly how Axios handles negative responses, so we may have to play around with that a little bit to find out what happens. But hopefully...
So if there are no jobs, can we make it have a message that sends you back to the unemployment line or something?
Maybe. Like I said, we'll have to try this out. So basically what's going to happen is we'll call start worker, which is right down here. That's going to kick off the process. That's going to send the message to ServiceNow. Once it receives a response back, and that of course will update the minion table. Once we receive a response back, then we start the polling for jobs loop every 10 seconds. And the poll for jobs is going to hit our job execution table, right now pulling a limit of 1, and we can configure all of this. And Andrew says the smart mouth is the reason to watch.
Nice.
You are the favorite.
I'm the favorite Tolson.
I am the other Tolson.
What's sad is how true this has become in certain circles where we work.
I don't mind.
I know you don't, because you're like, you can have all the attention, you and your bardic ways.
You can. I am just here to teach things.
That's true. And you do a very good job at me, because me teaching things is like a hot mess. But we'll see how it goes in, next time or whatever.
All right.
We gotta finish this, though.
So, now I need to open a terminal on Minion. Because now we're going to go back to what we did in some of the earlier videos and do the Docker thing. So Docker Compose file is set up to create a web service that is running a Minion. It's running the npm run dev script, just like we discussed in previous episodes. We are running Axios with NodeMon. NodeMon is basically going to restart this service if it dies. And we are running the app.js file, this one right here. That's the npm run dev. And I kind of need to clean up the name and some of this stuff in the package.json, but future Travis's problem. And then we've, of course, got the Docker file, which is being leveraged by the Docker Compose with this little build dot, is running this Docker file from Node 14 image. So we're using the Node.js image from Docker, setting up the working directory, copying the package.json, installing the application, copying the app in, and then Docker Compose will run that Node.js script. So Docker Compose up. Here goes nothing.
It's gonna work. Channeling my Bernie optimism.
Syntax error. Crash. All right, so you'll notice
missed like a colon or something, didn't you?
So you'll notice here that we've got the successful build of the image. So the image is fine. It was built because it did not already exist. It's telling me I should probably use to rebuild it, I'll have to use the -- build. We got the attaching to its terminal. NodeMon started up. Import config. The requested module .config.js does not provide an export named config. That seems reasonable, and that's probably because I changed how config works. It has a get config now. So what I actually wanted was get config.
That'll do it.
Future Travis probably will revisit and take the instance name out of the URL, but I'm thinking this is just a minimum viable POC thingy. Yes, absolutely. Eventually, I'm going to move the URL endpoint out into the environment file as well. I'm just trying to incrementally get to that point. I'm trying to keep... Some of this I've already tested, some of it I haven't, so I'm trying to change as little as possible to get where I'm going. So originally I had this static file config, like I mentioned before,
Yeah.
and I changed it to the get config function. So I have to change my import to get config. You'll notice that it is an async function.
You should be good now, right?
That may break. We'll discuss why if it breaks.
Otherwise, not our problem.
So what we want to do is var config is equal to await get config. Let's see. Maybe I can package this into start worker. That seems like a better way to go. No, it has to be at the high level because I'm passing config into multiple other functions. This might get a little sloppy. I may have to clean some stuff up later, but we're going to go for function first. All right, so var config. We'll pass the config in to start worker as opposed to importing from outside. That's actually an improvement. I actually like that because that separates this function from the outside, provides better isolation. And then on the poll for jobs,
if people judged you by your coding practices, they'd probably think you were antisocial.
there was a joke there, but I missed it.
You're like, it's just true.
All right, so I'm passing the config through to the poll jobs function as well. Again, this might be a little sloppy. I may have to go back and retool some of this code for me to be a little happier with it. If you're not familiar with this syntax, this is the, I believe it's called the object deconstruction or something like that. Basically, it takes the config and the polling interval and it makes it accessible without having to access a parent object. So normally you'd have like an args and you would do args.config, and but this allows you to extract those object parameters out into named parameters, if that makes sense. Polling interval, config, get config, start worker, passes the config. All right, so you notice that this just tried to rebuild when I saved the file, and we got another error. Config is not defined. So this is in config, name, GRU URL.
Config GRU URL. Right there. Should that be param?
JS2? Oh, right here. Required config values. Filter missing. So basically I've got some functions here that's checking for missing values. So I'm basically looking for anything missing by iterating over the required loop, checking if it's missing. Missing param. So I'm taking each of these and I'm passing param.value. Get name is param.name. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And I'm going to strip this out for now. Validate missing config. I'm going to strip the validation out for now. We'll go back and mess with that. Config is not defined, so it's still going to yell at me because I haven't eliminated that. Ah, there we go. All right, now we're in business. Whoa, that's a lot.
What did you do again?
All right, so hold on a second. Let's close this. Control C, clear. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to fire up this app again and console.log error, response.data. All right, so what I did was I removed the config validation because I had something wrong in my configuration validation, so I just stripped that out for now.
Gotcha.
And when I execute, you can see that I get a response. So, request failed with status code 401. Create error, settle, incoming stream end. Okay, so let's add a little bit more here just to make sure. I'm pretty sure this happened here. Create error. Because I'm having a little bit of trouble tracing what they're saying. I like my... I'm one of those log everything type people.
I love me some console.log. I kind of like the debugging thing that Chuck showed me. I thought that was really convenient, but it really, because I'm such a UI-driven visual person, it really bothers me to have my debugging code sitting on my UI, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a really cool, very convenient way that he does it, but it's just not for me. So I tend to do what you're doing here with console logging everything and then finding out where it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Then narrowing it down from there.
Start worker, request failed with 401. All right, so I'm getting a 401. So I think that one is forbidden. Verboten. Yep, unauthorized. So username, yep, unauthorized login. So that is most likely related to, I'm going to pull this over here. I am going to copy my password.
Oh, so you're putting your for real stuff in there?
Well, more than likely, because it's telling me that my password is wrong. That's what the 401 status code is. And so the most likely scenario is that... That's weird. No, that's the correct one. Let's check my username. View. Default view. Make sure you're still, yeah, you're still admin. Ah, wait a second. I may... So let's check something. So my username and password were correct, but I did set up my REST resources to have ACLs. which requires the minion and the admin. And the admin. Either one of those will work. So if I go to sysuser, so I was using my admin password, which is very bad, but I will bet you that he does not have, yep, see, there's no X. See, my admin did not have the right role to access that endpoint.
That'll do it.
Did I create... No, I did not. All right, so let's create... Let's create a user for the Kevin minion.
Will we have to do this with every minion we have, or is...
You can set up separate credentials for each minion, or you can use a single one. So like, for example, we could turn around. Let's set it up as one for now.
So that way you have like one, because like I'm thinking if you're using this to log into like a client's instance or whatever, like would you just use the username and password that you have to access?
You would want to set up an integration user. You want your integration user to have as little access as is required to do its job.
Gotcha.
So if I were to actually use my admin credentials on this, the minion would have admin level access to the system and could do whatever it wanted.
And we don't
so
want to
if
do that
somebody,
Skynet.
well, not Skynet so much as if somebody were to stumble across the minion server because they happen to have access, and I'm using a .env plain text file to store the username and password. Now whoever stumbled across that server has full authorized access to do anything in the ServiceNow instance. So somebody who may have been restricted to just seeing operational servers, behind the firewall, now all of a sudden has full control over ServiceNow. That's the sort of stuff that you want to avoid, so you create a specific integration user and you give them just the roles they need to do their job.
Back to that whole gotta keep them separated.
Gotta keep them separated. Now, all right, I'm going to do it right because Andrew's watching. And only because Andrew's watching.
That's hilarious.
Best practices in ServiceNow. You do not assign roles directly to users. You assign them to groups and assign groups to users.
Very good. Because otherwise everything is a mess. It's great because if you end up needing to change the role or add roles or whatever, then you do it in the group. And you're even getting it a description. I'm so proud of you.
They don't get no manager, though.
What do you mean they don't get a manager? It should be the science guy. The one with the fart gun? I need to find that. I think we still have it.
So I'm going to give these guys...
soundboard right there.
So I'm going to give these guys the minion role. And then... So now he's in that group, and he Sharon says that Andrew says thank you. So now the minion has the role it needs. I do need to give a password though.
Don't use the same one you used last time.
So now I need to update my environment file, my .env.
Which he's doing off screen.
Off screen.
Because he's afraid you sketchy people will steal his access and do something in his PDI. Oh, that's a great password.
Stop looking at my password.
I know your social security number better than you do.
You shoulder peeker. All right, so now I'm going to shut down the server, restart it.
And dash build.
Dash build.
That sounds like a dance.
All right, let's see what we got. Still failed with a 401. Settle incoming message emit. All right. Let's see. Let's double check and make sure I got my here. Run again. Make sure it's still 401. It is. This is interesting. So I still have a 401 error. Ooh, he says it said username undefined.
Oh, good catch.
Let's see.
This is the real reason we do this live. It's like free coding help.
Keep alive. I'm looking for it, I'm looking for it, I'm looking for it. Unauthorized. Basic realm pragma. URL post. Well, here, let me just do something simple on this one. Let's kill this console.log real quick, and let's just do a console.log. We can confirm this real quick. Config.username. Y'all know what the username is, so let's see. Oh, why did it?
What did it do now?
Oh, because I'm logging out. The error's down here, which just makes things harder on me because they are so daggone big. I gotta work on trimming that payload down. Undefined. Okay. So I'm going to log out config real quick, which means I have to take it off screen because it might log out my password.
And that would not be a good situation.
URL, username, password, and minion name are all undefined. All right. Well, that's helpful. Good catch. That's definitely the issue. We are sending garbage information. Garbage in, garbage out.
Well, stop sending garbage information.
And I am going to bet you that this is the reason here. So you remember how I said that if this failed, I would discuss why? Mm-hmm. Okay, we have an async function that is returning a config. I am pretty sure that's a no-no. What we actually want to do is return
a promise.
A promise. Promise.resolve config. Don't do it. Don't do it.
You're so funny.
All right, that still didn't work. Let's check that. Promise.resolve. Config.name. All right, we're going to go back to just... All right, there. Now I can bring it back on screen because I went back to just configure.username. So we're still getting junk out of this, which most likely means I'm getting junk. Oh.
What'd you do?
I'm silly.
Well, yes. I agree with that statement.
I think I've got it in the wrong parameter. Start worker, undefined. Odd. Yeah, I know. You're waiting on changes. It's still undefined.
That's so weird.
Uname is still undefined even when I do that. So process.env is not coming through. All right, so next, I need to, let's see, how do I do this again? So first of all, I need to attach to the minion. And we're using Linux, so...
See what your comment said? Does that help?
Yep. Print environment. Print env. All right, so right now I am attached to the minion directly. So I'm going to type print env and path user, and none of that got copied into the environment. Did the Docker documentation lie to me? So ideally, what I was hoping for, docker compose.env file. Let's see. Docker compose only and does not work with you can set default values for environment variables. Here, let me zoom in on this for you guys.
Oh, thank you.
You can set default values for environment variables using .env file, which looks for in project directory, parent folder of your compose. Let's see, tag env. You can pass environment variables from your shell straight through to a services container with the environment key by not giving them a value. Maybe that's what I'm missing. Maybe I have to pass them in the Docker configuration. Oh wait, the env file configuration option. You can pass multiple from an external file to the services container with the env option. Bingo.
You know what's really funny watching you do this?
What's that?
Is that when I am figuring out the visual design and putting it together, it looks a lot like this. I'm going to articles about UX principles or design principles and best practices for certain elements, or looking through endless inspiration pieces all over the net to figure out what exactly I want it to be structured like. Yeah.
Switch to my other terminal.
It's just another side of it.
Okay.
Did it work? No.
No, not yet. We're closer though, because if you look here,
it's not undefined.
It's not undefined at that point anymore. So now Docker, because we added the environment file here, it's now being registered by Docker Compose, which is copying that environment into our Docker container. So we're one step closer. Now, the problem is this right here is how I'm passing it. Right now, I am using config dot in all of these, and it's not config dot, it's config dot grew, just because of how I set it up in the other file. I put it under a namespace. Dot grew minion name. And then here, I need to do the same thing, grew. Grew.password. And then let's resume logging out our errors and our information. .403. We got a new status.
We're getting closer and closer to 404 and it's going to all disappear.
Let's see. Where's my... All right, 403 error. Forbidden. Man, I really want to get this together. Server understood the request. The server understands the request but refuses to authorize it. So HTTP 403 forbidden, client error status response code indicates that the server understood the request but refuses to authorize it. Okay, so I'm going to pull this off real quick so I can read just to make sure that the... All right, it doesn't look like there's any passwords or anything in here. Let's see, unhandled. All right, looks clean. Server says, I see where you're going with this. Nope. Yeah, pretty much. That's basically exactly what it said. Let's see. So start worker, API, grew, run, minion, connect. Incoming message, handle stream end, incoming message init, end readable NT. I wonder if we can test this. Does the role have execute access on your REST endpoint? It should. It should, because the... Well, let's check our endpoints just to make sure that the endpoints share. So that's execute access. And we need to check on the connect, which does have the minion API. And let's see if we can explore REST API Explorer. And we can go down to the minion API, connect. Now that won't work because I don't want to send as me. Use the provided code samples such as curl. Fine, be that way.
Does the role have execute access?
It should, because here's the REST endpoint.
And that's not my question, that's his.
It has execute.
His? Hers?
I'm
sorry,
we've got the GRU job run minion, GRU job run admin. Scripted REST APIs 1, scripted REST resources. How about the minion API? The minion API should have that default ACL. What is the purpose of the requires SNC internal? Where was that? Is that on the... Ooh, good catch. Maybe that's the issue. So this specifies that callers of this service must have SNC internal. And we're not including SNC internal with this. Maybe we should. We'll leave that up for other debate. That's a good catch. That might do it. That might be the issue. Let's try it again. Still 403. Let's go back. Requires authentication, requires authorization. Yes to both. Let's try something real quick. Let's go ahead and disable requires SNC internal for all of them, because it looks like that may have actually happened on the get work, not on the connect. And we can check that here in a minute too. Disconnect. We need heartbeat to disable it. We need add response to disable it. Okay, and then let's go to our minion table. Oops, not targets. We are creating something. We are creating something. Okay, so data, minion name is coming from GRU minion name. All right, we are almost there and almost done for the night. I'm going to try and get this to work here, because I would really love to get this connect to actually hit.
That's going to be all we get to tonight.
It is.
Dude, I want to do wireframes. You're slowing me down.
I'm sorry.
Jeez.
GS dot.
We got to get this in place first.
I don't know what my logging level is, so I'm just going to go ahead and use something dumb. Actually, we don't even have to do that. We can response dot set body. Yeah, it would help if we set a response here. for now, let's just pass the request back, just so that I'm going to pass the request back, and we'll see what that does. But I do think that the request SNC checkbox solved that issue. Let's see what happens. Okay. I have no idea what happened. I have... Whoa! Well, that was a lot of detonating.
Holy cow.
Whew. All right. Unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to throw in the towel tonight. I don't think I'm going to get this one working tonight.
Oh, we can take another look at it.
Hmm?
We can take another look at it later.
Yeah, we can take another look at it later.
I mean, you've pinged from outside. You've gotten into a server before, so...
Let's see. Is request.minion name going to be defined? I would have thought you have to get it from query params or body or something. That's a good point. That's a good point. Request dot body dot minion name and response dot set body, and so that is actually a really bad idea what I just did there. All right, let's try that. No idea what happened again. Here, for now, let's pull for jobs out. Let's just focus and make sure that we're getting the one thing right. We're not. Cannot map object detail. Enable glide rest debug property to verify REST request processing status failure. Well, let's eliminate this because maybe it doesn't like it. Let's do response. Well, yeah, it is really spitting JSON errors all over the place. I mean, this is the fun part of integrations, is you get to sit here and just dink around with random data.
Like, there is no fun part
Object
of
failure.
Integration. I don't know. No. Like, why you gotta trigger me like that?
Request failed with a status code of 500.
You skipped the 404.
We skipped the 404. Ugh, I'm an idiot. I am clearly tired and sloppy right now.
Yeah.
Hold on. I feel like we're so close, though. I feel like we're so close.
Should I, like, call up the last bit of my Bernie optimism?
Yes. Boom. Success.
Nice.
Okay. So now, if we go to the minions table, I mean, that's no bueno, obviously. Um, our minion name still isn't coming through.
It's because it's Kevin. He jinxed it. No, Sharon, there's no... I'm reading these comments and catching up. There's no... I reiterate, there's no fun part to integrations.
Body dot.
But I'm kind of biased because I do the opposite of that. One day you're going to make me sit down and do an integration, and I'm going to cry my way through it.
Please. Please, sir, work. It's so picky. Minion name is null. Okay. So it's not liking this. I'm going to try something dumb again. I mean, what's the point in trying stuff if you ain't going to try something dumb, right? And now it's going to spew garbage. Okay, so it doesn't like it. Fine. It is a post, which means I should have access to request.body. Is it? Wait, request.body.data, maybe? Was I missing a... You know, I could probably save myself a lot of trouble if I just looked up the API instead of guessing at it. Yep, that was most likely the issue. Was
Sharon
that
mentioned that this is like a Rubik's Cube, shifting pieces until it works, and I think she is absolutely right.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
This is where you doing Cody stuff and me doing Cody stuff looks very similar.
I got it working. And you know what the biggest problem in all of this was? Overconfidence. Overconfidence. If I had just opened up the documentation on the request and response, I would have clearly seen that it was request.body.data, and I would not have spent near as much time troubleshooting that little aspect there. But because I have done way too many of these REST endpoints to count, I was overconfident. I got cocky. I thought I remembered the API, and I did not. Banana. So now.
I love that everybody is lashing onto the whole minions thing. It makes me so happy.
So now, if I close this, clear, we're going to spin Kevin up. We get a success message. I check over here. Kevin is active. Of course, it shows chunky data because I haven't put any... I haven't put any of the options on status yet. But Kevin is active. And now if I run it one more time, it should not create another one. I should still get a success. I do. And I should still have one Kevin.
One Kevin.
Kevin is now active.
Is it one Kevin to rule them all?
One Kevin to rule them all. We now have Kevin active. And what is great about this is that I'm going to try one thing again just for... I have to. So the great thing about Docker...
It's working. What are you doing?
The great thing about Docker...
No.
The great thing about Docker is that you can spin up multiple.
I shouldn't let you code after 10 o'clock at night.
I'm sorry. I have to try.
We're getting pancakes tomorrow.
Minion name is equal to Bob. Is Bob okay?
Actually, you go ahead, but I'm going to look up minion names to make sure we have them. Okay?
All right. So I'm hoping that it will pull my environment file and then override the minion name
Bob
with
is
Bob.
a good minion name. Bob's the short, stocky one.
Yeah.
Kevin is the really
Is the
tall
one. Right.
Kevin, how tall are you? Does it fit? Are you really tall? I have to know this. I don't know if they'll answer
shoot.
the comments. Stuart has to be the next one. He's the one-eyed one with a ukulele.
I got 2. All right. So
Nice.
this is the cool thing about Docker is that I can spin up multiple of these guys. So I can just replicate them. A whole army, Stuart. So now if I shut this down and spin it up one more time. Bob, Stuart, boom. Bob, Kevin, and Stuart are all active.
Look at there.
And all 3 of them are using the same code base, but they are 3 separate Docker containers. So I've got Minion Bob, Minion Stuart, and Minion Web because I didn't name him properly.
I'm laughing at the commentary. MHD Prayer has been watching long enough that he knows about this time I start advocating for cookies because I like snacks.
Wow.
Banana.
Wow.
Chocolate's good too. Ooh, we still have some of that chocolate fudgy brownie ice cream stuff, don't we?
We do.
Oh, yes.
But, so to wrap this up.
Yes, we're wrapping this up.
It works. It works. We now,
get it working.
Not only do we have it working, but we can also show the power of Docker because you can see that I've spun up 3 separate minions. And because I'm running on a multi-threaded server over here with plenty of cores to go around, each of these can have a different worker thread on my server, and they can work in parallel
without getting in each other's way.
They can work in parallel. The only constraint then is the bandwidth of my network. But otherwise, these 3 guys can process till their heart's content. I have tons of processing power available. And I could spin one of these up for every thread that I have available on my server, and all of them would run in parallel. And that's one of the absolutely beautiful things about Docker is it lets you spin up complex environments really quickly. If I wanted to, I could include databases in this. So all 3 of these guys could share a common database at this layer if I wanted to. And I may get there. I don't know. We'll see. But that's what's really great about Docker is the ability to spin up these environments. You can do the same with ServiceNow's mid-server. But obviously we're going to be tackling different challenges with our Minion server. But now we've got the Connect working, so we can take that same idea and expand on it to provide the other pieces of functionality, like the heartbeat, the disconnect, the poll for jobs, and the add response. And hopefully those will each go faster because we've solved a lot of the problems on the Connect front.
If you were ever trying to encourage me to do an integration, you definitely took a good 3 steps back today.
Failed miserably?
Yes, you failed miserably.
I'm sorry. I did my best.
You did not do your best.
I did do my best.
If you were going to do your best, you would have made it easy. But that's okay.
But this was easy. I mean, look at that. We set up an entire connection in like 2 hours.
I'll go back to cover it in CSS and get back to me. That was really cool though. So next time on Dragon Ball Z, what are we going to do? Are we going to build out the heartbeat and the disconnect to get the whole thing running?
I think I am going to shoot for the poll for jobs next and add some actual processing into this. So, the heartbeat basically is going to allow us to keep this status up to date.
Yeah.
So I can periodically, if I haven't heard from a server in a while, I can change the status to inactive or down. You know, so I'm not as concerned with the heartbeat. I'm not as concerned with the disconnect. The poll for jobs and the ad response are really the core of the application. So I'm going to try and focus on that next.
Okay.
And we'll worry about, you know, messaging communication of saying, hey, I'm still alive later.
Or maybe we build that kind of stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And just show the functionality and go through some of the major parts and stuff like that.
Yeah, we can do that too. Because I do want to get to your side of things of the UI and actually being able to manage this stuff.
We need to finish requirements gathering for that, which for the purposes of this, it's not a podcast though. I want to call it a podcast. This little streamy thing we do.
Streamy thing we do.
Yes, the streamy thing we do. For the purposes of this, we're going to actually be doing the requirements gathering process off screen, camera, video, whatever.
We still have to work out exactly how, we'll do some of the legwork behind the scenes, but I do think it will be useful for people to see some of your process on how you go about, you know, getting some of that information. If nothing else, certainly the design. People want to know how to Sarah.
People do want to know how to Sarah, but like, I think it was Jason originally said that.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a whole process, and it starts with the discovery phase and kind of working through and figuring out what the user needs to be able to do in that front end experience and all that kind of stuff. So we'll have to figure out how we can balance some of that discovery phase before moving into wireframes, because honestly I could also do a summary of the requirements that we gathered and the activities we did to do that, and maybe do that summary. So yeah, we got to figure that out so we can get working on the front end UI that we will use to manage these different tools that we build out.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay. Sounds like we got a plan. But for now, we have a minion.
Yes,
I'm excited. We got it working tonight, and it was really looking like it wasn't going to happen. So I am really glad. Thank you guys for all the help. Thank you guys for all the help, because I mean,
yeah, that was a team effort.
That was a huge team effort. I'd have been stuck there for a while being arrogant.
Bless your heart.
I know.
You're precious.
Writing checks my body can't cash. What else is new?
Well. So are we good?
I think we're good. I think it's cookie time.
It is cookie time. And then we will hopefully get back to being consistent and be back on Thursday. I don't know. We may get bored this weekend and do a thing.
We might. We'll have to see.
We'll see.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, guys. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.
Later.
Have a good night.